Greeting interwebs, this is Jackie K, and welcome. It's been a hot minute since I've last done a game dev vlog. In fact, apparently the last thing I uploaded was back in November 2025. Unless we count the April Fool's premiere of the new game demo, which I don't. But at the very least it proves that, hey, I have been doing stuff with game development. For some reason it's just been a struggle to get myself back into talking about the development I'm doing as I'm doing it. There was a lot of secrecy because I wanted to save a bunch of surprises for the demo reveal back in April, but we're well into June and I haven't really said much of anything despite the work I've been doing between the scenes. I guess technically Game & Chill also counts because I sprinkle being videos of just about what I've been up to in general. I sprinkle in the game design that I've been doing here and there, but I really should get back in the habit of making videos, if only for myself so I can reflect on how much I've grown over the years. The issue's just been that, like, where do I start? It's been so long, it's kind of hard to narrow down where to even begin, and try and remember what I have talked about and what I haven't talked about. So I might as well just bring it up here that I'm inevitably going to forget about something because it's been so long. So I'm going to just make this video to try to get back into the swing of things. No script, just talking about things off the top of my head. That way I have some sort of base starting off point, this and that. And since I can't seem to think of a better starting off point, how about I go into more details about the demo itself, at least the main major updates between the last release of the Firebrand demo and the little one-off / sequel update that I did around the time frame of April Fool's. If you've been following the channel closely, you've probably already seen the trailer. So this video I'm going to go into the details of what's been updated in that, for those of you who haven't had an opportunity to play the game for yourself. You know, in fact, I did a whole dev vlog on the itch page. Why don't I just steal from that? If I'm not going to buy a ready script, why don't I just use that as a reference? Starting with the most drastic update to the game, a second character. This was such an idea that I had all the way back when I released the first World 1 overhaul update. Correction, it's been an idea well since before I made that update, which was like 95 days ago, 98. According to what I have written on itch. Like, it's been so long I can't even remember exactly when I first got the idea and started working on it. I might have even said in one of the old game dev vlogs that I had like a secret surprise or something that I was initially planning on releasing with the World 1 update, but then I got the idea that I needed an idea for an April Fool's video anyways, and I came up with a fun way to like section that off into its own update. Put a little spotlight on the new character in and of herself. So the point I'm getting at is that having multiple characters is an idea that wasn't there from the beginning, but at this point might be closer to the beginning than this very second. But I wouldn't get too excited because I am trying to keep the scope down for probably my first major game release. So for right now, it's just those two characters. And I'm gonna wait until I flesh out the scope of the game, aka make at least the majority of the levels for each of the worlds I want to implement into it, before deciding if I actually want to make more than two characters. Because of the accessibility options that I've added to the game, in reality, 2 characters is more like 4 characters than it is 2. Allow me to elaborate. One of the accessibility options I have is this low gravity mode, which completely changes the physics of a character. So when I design my levels, I have to keep the physics of the characters that are going to be in it in mind. And since the low gravity drastically changes the way a character behaves in terms of falling slower, sliding slower, and having a bit more floaty of a jump, it may also allow people to platform in ways that they wouldn't be able to normally. So that's what I mean. When I'm making these levels to try to compensate for both characters, I have to take into account both their normal gravity and the low gravity, because otherwise it may be a little too easy to cheese certain sections. I don't mind a bit of cheese, but I do want to avoid the situation that a player completely misses out on something they need to learn because they cheese through it. So essentially you can cheese through the levels as long as you learn how they're supposed to work along the way, especially with a character like Nayla. So that's the main reason why, despite having a handful of ideas that I could implement into making new characters, I'm limiting it to 2 until the game is entirely fleshed out, because adding another character would essentially make me have to work around 6 sets of physics rather than just 2 or 4, and so on and so on. Speaking of, I guess despite being Nayla's update, I haven't really talked too much about the character herself. In terms of gameplay, she's meant to be a more advanced version of Sara that you start out with, though I could definitely see more hardcore players preferring her. So considering that I feel like the internet's going to be a major demographic of this game despite building it around a more casual audience, I am thinking that I want her available early on in the game. As fun as it would be to have an unlockable character, maybe it would be for the best to even have her available from the start of the game for people who find Sara too slow paced. That being said, I am working on trying to make Sara and Nayla more even, so even the more dedicated platforming fans can still have fun with her in ways that they couldn't with Nayla, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. A major difference between the two is that Sara wields fire while Nayla wields wind, which is awfully convenient for me considering that the main obstacle that I have in the game currently are bushes that can easily be destroyed by both fire and wind. And the steam vent, which is Sara's main way of vertical projection, I can fangle around the lore enough so that even though they are steam activated, they work perfectly fine with wind as well. I say lore, but I think I mean more logic. I don't think people are going to question too much why stomping on an event makes you fling upwards any more with Sara than it would with Nayla. If that does happen, we'll figure that out when we get there. That being said, just from their element alone, there are some differences between them. For example, while bushes can be destroyed by both fire and wind, there are certain types of plant-based structures that can only be destroyed by fire, such as the already established logs, but also a few handful of other obstacles, both already implemented but not talked about, and those that I plan to implement into future levels/worlds. And since these are differences between their elements and not the direct differences between the characters themselves, you can still have Nayla go through certain obstacles that normally only Sara would by collecting a Fire Soul Spirit within the levels. That being said, you're not always going to get a Fire Soul Spirit in every level, so there are still going to be situations where Nayla has to navigate through a level differently than Sara. Having the Fire Soul Spirit just allows me to have more options when it comes to level design for the two of them. And by that same extension, the powers that Sara would normally only get when collecting a Wind Soul Spirit, Nayla gets to have by default for every level. So, on top of the differences between the characters from a physics standpoint, which we'll get to eventually, Nayla constantly has access to a double jump, which is one of the reasons why I feel more advanced players are gonna end up preferring her. That being said, let's jump right into the fun part and talk about the physics differences between the two. Sara is a bit more slow paced, so that more beginner friendly players can have more ease of control over her, while Nayla is significantly faster in movement both horizontally and vertically, at the cost of not being quite as easy to control. That's at least the plan on paper. I have to get the game in front a wider range of players to get their feedback on how well this is in execution, because for me, the physics are working as planned with the characters, though I did get some feedback from a single person that things may not be as they seem, but it's hard to really get a gauge between being so used to the way that they currently perform and the fact that it's just literally a single person and the feedback is vague enough that I can't quite narrow down what they might mean. Luckily, I think we're still pretty early on in development, so maybe I'll find the answer along the way. Going through all the specifics that I can think of off the top of my head, Nayla's run speed is faster. Obviously she can get a little higher with the double jump, though to compensate for constantly having access to the double jump, her individual jumps are a little shorter than Sara's. She slides down walls way faster than Sara does. Her air dash is significantly faster, though it doesn't last as long as Sara. Still, I think she does still get significantly more horizontal distance from the air dash than Sara. The whole point of making her dash speed shorter was to compensate for the dash going faster and make their air dashes more even. But as I spend more time, I kinda like how Nayla gets more horizontal distance, so that probably will stay, but now that I say it out loud, it's worth reconsidering. Oh yeah, they both interact with the bubble bounce ability differently, but that's worth saving for its own short. Like I said though, I don't want Sara to be completely overshadowed by Nayla, so I went back and added, in my opinion, a really cool addition to the Sara's move kit that gives her some advanced movement options that Nayla does not have. And that would be the flame kick. Flame slide. It's a sliding kick that's on fire, so I guess it works either way. Unlike what the name implies, this is exclusive to Sara's move kit. Even with a Fire Soul Spirit, Nayla never has access to this. I could go on, but if only to ease myself back into making these types of videos again, I'm gonna keep this one short. We can always talk more about the flame slide another time. Especially because there's so many other things that introducing Nayla into the equation adjusted with the game, but I definitely don't have time to go into everything. Thank you all for tuning in for this game dev vlog. Hopefully it won't be another 6 months before I record another one. Either way though, I hope you take care.